Hello, friends. In this lesson, we'll analyze the data and the video from the practice January 11, Rotax with Graeme, and we'll try to find mistakes and what should be fixed and where we have spots where we can improve our driving and make our laps faster. Okay, this is compare. And in this case, I compare, as you see now on the screen, 52.3, this is my lap time, and 53.5, my Graham's best lap. It was 11.46. I used Mojo tires, and Graham used Vega tires, which worked faster on that day than Mojo. A little bit faster, yeah. But the same the same session, best laps. So let's go. Green line mine. Now I have speed and GPS forces. Um, we see that we have different speeds when we enter to the corner. It's 3 miles per hour, which is hard to say why. Probably it was exit from the last corner, which make Graham slower because later we can see that Graham's cars on the straight line not slower than mine, even faster at some point. For example, here you can see that he's 2 miles per hour faster than me. So this in this case, I think the reason is exit from the last corner, which can be, but we'll come there later at the end of the lap. So we start from data and then we move to video. So first corner, comparing with me, uh, plus minus is the same at the same point braking, but then just slower, just less speed and big difference. This is 4 miles per hour in apex, and then we have 3 miles per hour, for example, when we accelerate to the hill. And the gap between us 1.5 tenths, 0.15, just because of this. I think that it was possible to drive faster in that corner, especially in this case because it was Vega tires, which work a little bit better than Moja. Because if I open, for example, now my session which I did with Vega tires 30 minutes before, I did 51.7, and you see that let's make it completely different color. For example, blue. Yeah, no blue. It's still very close. Let's make it yellow. Yeah, yellow will be good. You see yellow line mine vegatized 30 minutes before. Little bit under the green, which is interesting, but still faster than Graham did in this session. Okay. And then we see in both cases the difference between us on the braking second corner, that I brake way too later, much later. And we see that for Vega green tires, I had more grip, and I had opportunity to be much faster than with Mojo. The main thing for Mojo was that in the middle of the corner, kart had understeer, so enter is good, but then it's at one moment when you need to hold inside rear tire, uh, it's just not enough in there because less level of the grip, and sometimes it looks like it's in the middle of the corner. It touched the ground. You're inside rear tire, and car want to go straight, and you need to make correction. So it was a little bit delay on the braking to enter to go through the corner, yeah, smoothly, and because of that, it was slow, especially in slow corners. But you see on the yellow line here that I was faster and accelerated faster, and I didn't have that that green, you see here that I lost on the exit pretty a lot speed, but with tires I was much faster. So potentially we should see that on the red line here, Graham could be better in this corner, for example, than me. But why it didn't work? Because you see that red line earlier just coasting, and we see here this is GPS forces on the braking that at this point, let's make it the map bigger. On the top of the hill, when I still go flat with full throttle, Graham release. And then from here, this is our braking, and you see the power on brake on my card. It's much more harder comparing comparing with Graham. Less pressure on the braking, more smooth, more long braking, and this more smooth long braking make a lot of understeer, and you enter to the corner still, for example, here with more weight than acceleration. You understand? Again, this is like that. And now let's take a look on this on the video. Graham goes as wide as possible using uh, yellow line, white line, and this is enter point, plus minus like mine. But you see that a little bit more steering and card slides a little bit more, like fighting with oversteer for Graham in this at this moment. You see that steering in different position, but line a little bit more wide compared with mine. Now card straight, and now again sliding. And this sliding was just because little bit more steering again than it should be. Yes, it was very slippery. It was very hard on that day. Yes, but we still have gap to go wide in this corner. So the goal is to listen your tire, to understand your level of grip. And if you have possibility to go wider, your priority not to slide, not to lose speed, not to lose momentum, but to use all the track to carry speed. Yes, because this speed here on the exit, then you still have time to come back to the top of the hill, and all this time you can go a little bit faster if you don't slide on the exit from the corner. Yeah, you see that at, at, at the beginning of the braking, ram a little bit faster and goes away from me. And because of this, it's hard to rotate the cart later. Uh, why? Because when you brake softer, you don't have enough front grip to rotate the cart. And in this corner, it's very important to brake as hard as possible to load your front tires to have good grip, especially in these tricky conditions when it's very cold. It was only like 42 degrees outside, track cold. Sorry, please. Track cold, tires cold. Maximum tires temperature was on that day like 50 degrees Celsius. Uh, but tires work well only from 80, yeah. But how to fix this here? Just try to go closer to the limit, yeah. That's it. Just a little bit more closer to the limit, and from data we see that it's possible because It's pretty much the same chassis I used, the same setup, the same tires. Yes. So yeah, you see, I close on the apex and I have brake and I'm already on the throttle and he need just to leave. Yeah, but I have brake acceleration. Then Graham's car faster on the hill because I should brake a little bit. Here we see that Graham didn't slide. It was good. And now enter to the corner a little bit later than me. Because of this later, I missed apex. Missed apex and missed speed. More grip we have here. I always say this. Now let's go back to data and I'll show you this on the data. Yeah, so we go out from the hill, acceleration, and then we see, for example, that here Graham uh, sliding on the top of the hill, just it was oversteering. But on video we saw that it was good. On that lap it was good, no sliding. We see also my yellow. I lost speed a little bit here on the exit. Yeah, but in both cases I brake later with more high speed than Graham. And in clubhouse corner, I gain 1/10. Let's delete yellow so it will be easier to understand. Yeah, so later, more hard braking, but then earlier acceleration from here. You see, from the apex. We see that Graham coast a little bit earlier. It's it's here, and then more soft braking. Because of that, you're not able to brake as late as possible, as hard as possible, because you can't brake as hard as possible short in this corner because you brake earlier. So more smooth braking, and again, because of that, you don't have enough front grip to rotate the cart. Uh, and Also, you see later a little bit on the throttle, and as a result, worse exit. But if Green can make the same, for example, like this green, it should be this red line should be even much better, much faster than green one. So in this corner, we see the difference. It was 0.13 on enter, and now it's more than 2. So a little bit more than 1/10 was losing. So now we see that first corner, this is 1.5. Let's try this, 0.15. Then uh, overall second corner on this lap was the same. So Graham didn't lose anything with the acceleration on the hill, but then that small slide, let's say 0.05, then clubhouse 0.1. Total now we have 0.3 provisionally. And we see what we could do better. Here, this corner, braking here probably a little bit. Then this clubhouse. Okay, here we see the difference through the chicane. Probably this is just because of engines. So this at this moment maybe senior engine has a little bit more power, so acceleration is better. But we see this on the chicane, so it can be also be a little bit driving in the chicane because sometimes I notice that, let's say for example here, Up, you see that car sliding a little bit. Yeah, and also it's very important not to hit these curbs because when you hit these curbs, you break a lot. You don't see the video, sorry. Let's come back. Yeah, you saw small sliding. Up and always repeat. Try to stay as smooth as possible in chicane. Don't make moves. Now we go to SS and let's analyze video and then we'll watch the data. So from first till second apex, you first to rotate the card. And in this day, it was very slippery. You see that a lot of steering and then oversteer at this point. When you have oversteer and lose momentum, lose engine RPM at this point, it it makes you slower than full this part of the track acceleration from this point even like let's say till the last corner. So we should avoid these slidings. But why it happens? This is everything begins from the braking. We'll see later on the data that you need to load tires, you need to enter to the corner and just rotate, rotate, rotate. You need to synchronize your throttle pedal uh, with level of grip and help with your acceleration to rotate cart more and more and more. Um, which is possible again when you brake as late as possible, as hard as possible. And when you enter to the corner, you have good front grip and you lose a little bit your rear axle. And and even from beginning at the end of the straight line, your cart already make like yeah. When you slide a little bit on the rear and you already make like 50% of rotation and then you just add throttle and go, 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 go. Sometimes if you're very aggressive with acceleration, from first apex till this apex, you start sliding or you just have um, understeer, your car want to go straight and to be able to stay here near the apex, here you need to add more steering. It's like instinct for you and you start sliding. Avoid this. Avoid this. Everything begins from the braking. And then be smooth and patient with your throttle and with your steering. Minimum steering and throttle synchronizing with your level of grip to rotate the cart. Then, as I said, uh, when it's especially when it's very slippery like it was on that day when it's cold uh, and Rotax card has a lot of power even with a little steering we slide in essence here when usually we go full throttle back so to not to lose time and still have to be able to have a good exit, I used this left curve very deep, as you can see here. It allows me to have more straight line. Yeah, this like half cart, which we cut this curve, helps you not to make moves to the left and then to the right through the S's. You have more straight line and because of that you can be faster on the exit and accelerate more, accelerate better. Do you see sliding? And here also you saw sliding. Why it happens? Because sliding here a lot of steers here. Then you see that I don't move so much left. It looks like I almost going to hit this curb, and even if I need, I'll hit it. But the goal is not to move more to the left and then to the right. No, straight line. Straight line. You need to release your car like when it touch, when it goes near the curb, it just slides near that curb. Not like we need to go to avoid it and then go back to the racing line. No, less steering should be through the SS. Less and less steering. I show you also this on the line on the on the map later on the data. And then from here, release car to the left side and through this curve, through this last apex, just the goal to have straight steering. But now the cart will slide after the curve because it was little bit input on the steering on the left. Frame hit the curb, fly, and then when he goes down on the track, this little bit input to the left, cart slide because front tires had rotation to the left side. Okay, see? Oversteer again, but in this case, just more steering that should be. And you see this now. I don't know when we did this, but we have red dots, which is very good for you now. First, we need to be as close as possible here. This is wider, closer, more grip. And you see here in each apex now we have this red paint marks, which shows us pretty good apexes, apex points. Now in this case, I just a little bit more steering than it should be. And now you saw that, and you see on the curves now, so a little bit more pressure, and then car just dance a little bit more smooth. Sliding out. It was hard to stop the cart, and then we sliding out, miss the apex a lot, and the gap to the apex is very big here. Again, we see here the dot, red dot, this one. It can be a little bit off from this line. Sometimes it can be used a little bit more late apex, especially when it's slippery. But for Rotax, we should have more narrow exit. We don't need to slide out like we use this for a Lotto 6, okay? Because our goal is to have more straight, more narrow acceleration, less distance. This is usually faster for Rotax. Now it was better, but we saw a little bit sliding at the end. Here. Up. Let's should stay a little bit more relaxed with hands before move to the left. Also, distance increased on the braking and decreased in accelerations. Yeah, that's what I said about exit from clubhouse. So usually for Rotax I try to rotate cars and to have more straight, narrow line on in the middle of the track. It allows me to have less distance and earlier to be without without steering on the straight full throttle line. And then in the middle here, and it's critically important not to steer and not to touch curbs, but we see this mistake pin, and then car just breaks because of that a lot. Okay, we go for S's. You see now rotation, 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 and you see use curb, use this, use this, and on that day it helped me to have very very straight line. Let's go back to data. We discussed already this, and now let's go to the braking. You see that very pretty good power on the brakes, good forces, good maximum forces on the braking for Graeme. But earlier, so we had 3/10, still the same 3/10 at the end of the straight line, and through the S's, it's already five, more than five. So 2/10 was losing from this point, from the breaking point till this second left apex. 2/10. But the main thing here also, we see that earlier braking and then earlier more fast enter to the corner and more aggressive acceleration, more early aggressive acceleration from here, you see, from this point. So enter to the corner with fast acceleration here, comparing with me. But because of that, we see that from here near the second apex, my cart is already rotated. I braked a little bit more, but at the same time I rotated the cart, and then I have from here only good acceleration. Okay, so I start accelerating here a little bit later, but at this point my cart already only increased speed. You see, between first and second in the middle of the track, and I just go faster, faster, faster. But we see for Graeme that to accelerate here earlier, stable speed, like between first and second apex, it was like straight line, like this is straight acceleration. But because of that, then here, even like more aggressive, one more step, and then slide back, big slide back near this left apex because this earlier, faster acceleration didn't allow to rotate the cart, and then near this second apex, cart is not in the position when we can go on the throttle and go straight. It still wants to go there or too wide or just the different direction, and then we need to add steering and lose our rear, and we see this sliding here, and then again acceleration, and then again sliding near next apex. Why? Because you was too deep, and then you need to add more steering to the left. One more sliding, and then you see the difference 3 miles per hour here because of that. And RPM, momentum, everything losing on that. You see, big forces also show us braking. Uh, Yeah, and so yeah, sometimes we need to see more braking. Yeah, let's go here back to Clubhouse. You see that in Clubhouse I brake more hard, but then I have more better good acceleration. But here we see this forces, this is sliding, and this sliding, then we see this red line which is always under the green line, and yeah, 2 tenths was losing in S's, but then at that moment when those 2 tenths were losing mostly on the braking, we see that then before the David Benz we have 9 tenths gap. It means that it almost 4 tenths losing from from the middle of the S's to the David Benz corner. It is a lot, and this is the reason S's critically important to go through them smooth with maximum momentum, with maximum speed, with no slidings, and so on. Even, for example, if we put RPM engine, uh, we can see what we can see. We can see that on my card RPM didn't work correctly because of setup, probably. That's what I wanted to show here. It's hard to see in compare because RPM didn't work. Yeah, but it was, you see on RPM also delay here. Not like it should be like straight line up, but it wasn't because of this, because of the sliding. It's this corner here, right on the exit. Again, we see the little line goes down more than on mine, a little bit more braking here compared with me. Like less acceleration first at the beginning. This is on the exit. Less forces on acceleration, but then even more braking. And again, this is just a little bit more overpressure on the steering. Didn't Cart wasn't released outside most as smooth as it was possible, and we see this small losing of the speed in this right corner. So line should be more straight here. And the same in David Benz. Uh, at this point, I lose speed a little bit when I enter to the corner, but then on exit, I just go up. But Graeme, even on exit, still a little bit. Here you see the difference between us 3 miles per hour. It's because on the exit, a little bit more sliding, which we saw in the video. And after David Benz, this is one more tenth. Yeah? So SS 02 on the braking, then SS on the exit till David Benz 04. David Benz before the last corner 01. And last corner, pretty much the same like braking in SS earlier, little bit coasting at the beginning. Pressure was good, but it just was way too early, and we see 1 tenth, 1 0 0 0 11, yeah, on the braking. Then more early acceleration from here. From here, our G forces go back to the zero, or at this point to positive value. For example, for me, it's still 0 0. For Graeme, it's 0.25. So he already accelerates uh, earlier, and this earlier acceleration gives more sliding on the exit here. You see, and more wide exit and more sliding, less stable acceleration and some losing speed at this point. You see, and probably this is the reason why then, because momentum was losing, maybe coasting a little bit at some point. We see that here got a little bit slower on the straight line. And we have 1.1 second at the end of the line. But if we count all this point, 0, 06, 0, 07, 08, yeah, 1.1. Yeah, so again and again, we go to the moment when we talk that we need to go on track, try to drive as smooth as possible, not to have more inputs on the steering than we should. Uh, than we should. We need to brake as late as possible, as hard as possible, but at the same time avoid situations when we go to the corner, when we're already in the apex or even on the exit, but we still brake and we're still trying to stop the cart. It shouldn't be like this. No, we end the braking on the straight line and then we enter to the corner, and this is transition to the acceleration. On braking, we can be closer to locking the rear axle, and our goal is to make our rear free, like to lose it a little bit, and then again back catch the rear grip with our steering and throttle and throttle. Uh, so let's keep working on brakings, on steering smoothness, and yeah, use this tricks how to go through S's with minimum steering. If you need to cut the apexes, you need to cut the apexes, not to slide. And yeah, Clubhouse close to apex, David Benz close to apex. Use the racing lines where we have more grip. First corner on the exit, we always need to not to be in a rush to come back to the left, otherwise we lose the grip on the exit and sliding, and also can lose a little bit. Yeah, we can come back to the video quickly, maybe find something more, and I think it's a good point to see what we need to try to improve on the next practice day. Good luck with me. Apex, go full throttle here. Did you see? On the Rotax, I'm always a little bit more narrow. Slide. I don't slide here. My goal is to have a little bit more narrow, to have more straight acceleration, because we have more power. And if we steer like with KA or like with a low and trying to go wider and push the throttle, we just slide and we don't gain anything. We only lose. Short break and back to throttle. Hear the sound, listen the sound always. Where you hear engine RPM goes down and when engine RPM goes back. Yeah. It was very short. Fast. Braking and go. Then release, you see cart. No steering, yeah. Look at the steering. No moves on the steering. Outside. And we go back diagonal line and brake at the same time. Mistakes a little bit. You see here, we try to go in the narrow. Braking. and transition to throttle. And rotate, rotate, rotate. Cut, cut. Apex, release, go. This lap was 52.5. It was not the fastest lap. Next one will be, I think, even better. That's it for today. Next video will be for a Lotto 6 driver.